My name is Gar Waterman. I'm a sculptor here in the Westville section of New Haven. This studio has been my workplace for the last 24 years. So over here is where I do my metalworking. I've got welding here, MIG and TIG.
Here's a series I'm working on. This is a triptych of sort of anemocora seeds, which means wind distribution in nature. Obviously, at 5 or 10 pounds a piece, the wind isn't going to be blowing these any great distance. But this is all scrap from a laser cutter. 5 pieces. I don't know what they were making, but this is the kind of stuff that I find. So how do you make that interesting? Well, you cut it into pieces and you start bending it and adding them together and configuring them into a radially symmetric sculpture, and things start to get kind of intriguing.
I've always been interested in insects, beetles in particular. So large beetle sculptures like this one have been part of an ongoing art science exhibit project, basically where I use a paradigm shift of scale, taking a really tiny subject and enlarging it with my artwork in order to focus attention on some of these fascinating aspects of nature that in real life are so small that their details can often be overlooked and missed. So I've been very interested in using my artwork to bring attention to some of these fabulous creatures, many of which, of course, are under a lot of environmental stress because of the collapse in biodiversity these days. So beetles are not the only creatures that I like to explore with my scrap metal sculpture. These birds are a good example of some of the other creatures that I like to make. Here you have a ruffle-throated codswallop. I've always been amused at some of the names that these birds have, so that's where that came from. Over here I have my own kind of cabinet of curiosities. A lot of interesting odds and ends from the natural world. Seeds, of course, in particular, have fascinated me forever. Something about that sort of mystery that they contain of the potential for new life kind of hidden inside. And so I do a lot of sculptures of seeds. I grew up with a father who was an underwater filmmaker. So I began diving when I was about 9 years old, and really have always been fascinated by life under the sea. And that's come out quite frequently with the sculptures that I make. These days I'm working a lot on a series of sculptures of sea slugs. It's kind of a weird topic, but they are fascinating creatures. Most of them are tiny, no bigger than that. I've been making them in stone, some like that, others a little bit bigger, like this. I just finished this sculpture in a Persian red travertine. This one is based on a sea slug that really kind of looks exactly like this, called a Rostanga rossi, kind of a red gumdrop shaped little beastie. This is a gorgeous stone, comes from Iran, very beautiful travertine. One of my favorite things in the studio here is my wall of postcards here, which I never really tire of looking at. There is just some wonderful stuff in here. And I don't know if it's inspiration. They're just interesting images that I've collected over the years of all kinds of things. And my sources of inspiration are really quite varied. My tastes are pretty varied. I'd say if there's any general rule, it's that I'm most interested in work that shows that the artist has spent their 10,000 hours learning their skills.